Welcome to another episode of Jenny's Way. Today, we have a truly special guest joining us, Bob Young. He is not just a seasoned professional golfer, but a captivating author who has explored the intricate connection between the mind and the game we love. He reaches beyond the boundaries of the golf course and resonates deeply with the game of life itself. You may recognize the last name. Yes, he is the older brother of legendary Neil Young. Today, we have the privilege of delving into world of mind golf with the one and only Bob Young.
I really excited to see Robert Reglan Young, and I want to welcome Mr. Young to the show. He is amazing professional golfer. He is a musician, and he's also amazing with his knowledge of metaphysics. So I am looking forward to this exciting conversation, and I want to thank you for coming to Jeannie's show. And I can't wait to get in and start our journey with this conversation. So tell me, how did it all started for you? Do you feel like growing up in your household has helped you with your golf and your music? How did it feel growing up at your household?
Well, my father was a writer. He wrote and published 35 or 40 books in Canada. Our family friends were, many of them were writers that became extremely well known. When television came along in the early 1950s after the Second World War, our family friends, and my father included, became nationally visible because of what they did. And by writing and being involved in television programs and so on. My father, for instance, did the televised intermissions for the National Hockey League games that were nationally televised. And then when television started happening nationally, he was already the sports columnist for a major national newspaper, the Globe and Mail. And then he became visible. So once your face is out there on that level, anonymity vanishes. So I grew up being used to that happening because of what happened with my father, and I was happy what happened with people who write. And then my brother's career began after that, and it became what it is now. It's still happening. So I was, the language describing what I'm doing as a professional golfer. I'm not really a member of the Canadian Professional Golfers Association at this time, but I was for 25 or 30 years. And I have some songs. I have one that's been recorded that's on YouTube called Hey America.
Nice.
I'm sorry, when I hear I'm a song, I write songs, I'll say that. I enjoy doing it, but I hadn't done it until probably 2.5 years ago when I wrote this song, Hey America. And frankly, as I say that, you might want to give it a listen on YouTube. It's the title's Hey America. The band name is Young Bob and the Peterboroughs. My brother's playing a harmonica part on it and singing a little bit of vocals.
Yeah, I've heard it. It was very interesting. I like it. Yeah.
Well, it's funny, as people have been mentioning it to me lately, once in a while when subject comes up. But the song, I thought when I wrote it, the lyric was relevant then. Now, if anything, is more relevant.
It's almost you can see the future, right?
Well, the concept of quantum leap thinking has been brought to my attention one way or another through my interaction with various individuals, some of whom I can communicate with through trance mediumship. And that idea of quantum leap thinking, I never knew what it meant, but to some degree, I know I use it. So occasionally I hear something, and for some reason I see where it's going in my own mind. And then a couple or 3 years later, it actually happens. Or I see something and realize where it came from for the same reason. but I don't really think about it. It isn't
Mm.
something I do intentionally. It just happens that way.
What does quantum leap means to you, really? How do you define?
The comment was made to me recently. You don't even know what quantum leap thinking is, but you do it. Quantum means big as far as I can make out, like a giant step, a leap, quantum leap. You cover a lot of territory in one move mentally. I mean, I don't know whether that's the way I perceive its meaning. And it's useful. I mean, it can be. And as far as the rest of it is concerned, it's a stretch to call me a professional musician because I don't really know what I'm doing, but I can play what I play, and on the piano or the guitar, and sing along with it because I write the lyric. Frankly, the writing of the creative spark that causes the lyric to come into being is the energy that drives whatever the music is. I've noticed that. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I do notice this. When the creative spark that created the lyric is in my mind, and that's what's driving what I'm doing when I'm playing the guitar or the piano, it fits together the right way. You can't force these things to happen. And I'm not trying to. I mean, I'm 81 years old. I'm not trying to start a career and form a band and go on the road and play
Are you sure?
and hope that it works out. No. Fine. By the time I'm 91 or 92, I could be really well known, or I could not be. Who knows? I'd rather do what I'm doing, hit golf balls, I'll play the guitar. You can record songs and put them on YouTube. And if anybody wants to listen to them, they're welcome to go ahead. But to form a band, practice, get ready to play in front of people, that's another step altogether, really. It's a big one.
You've seen a lot of that with your brother Neil. You've been seeing a lot of behind the scene, I'm sure, with him. Tell us about it. How exciting was it for you to?
Well, I've always been able to get into the interior of what's going on his tours, and then other ones also from time to time. And that's just when I was, I mentioned my father doing these intermission interviews on nationally broadcast National Hockey League games when I was a teenager. But at the same time, I was inside on that also. I was able to go into the Toronto Maple Leafs dressing room. Nobody can do that except the hockey players and people who know them. Well, not even people who know them, but I knew them from playing golf. And my father and the coach of the hockey team and my father were friends. So I grew up, I played golf with these people. When they were nationally known hockey players, coaches, and so on. And then when my brother started doing what he was doing, it was the same idea, but a different venue, really, a concert hall. So I'd go in with the band. I'd be backstage. I could go out and sit at the soundboard with the people who control the sound. That's where the sound's the best, by the way.
Wow,
and
okay.
I could do that, or I could sit on the side of the stage out of sight of the people and watch what was going on from there. And I knew the people because I knew them. I got to know them that way. We traveled here and there. I went to England, and when the Eagles, a band you might have heard of, I guess, the Eagles were famous. They opened for a tour my brother did called the Tonight Tonight Tour, way back there, 1972 or 3, somewhere in that time frame. And they'd been Linda Ronstadt's band. Linda doesn't play and sing anymore for some medical reason, I believe. But it was, I had that access, not because I sought it out. It was just there.
Yeah.
Part of existence. Yeah.
You were insider, right? So you knew everything what was going on.
Well, I knew more of it than a lot of other people did. Did I understand it? It was interesting. It's still interesting, actually.
I'm sure it was very exciting and interesting for you. You got to speak with all of them. And by talking with them, where did you see any commonality of their traits or personality? What made them who they are? What made them successful? I'm always curious to see what of those characteristics and personalities. What do you think from what you've seen?
There's a lot of similarities between people who are creative artists, and whether they're painting pictures or writing songs and going on the stage and performing the songs live to thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands of people. There's a direct, in my view, relationship between people who do that and people who play professional sports. I can see it in certain, in golfers because I understand the game, but I see it in other sports like tennis and, pick an individual effort. Golf is an individual game. Once in a while, there are teams, but essentially it's an individual effort. That person's walking out on the stage, hitting the little white ball from where it is to where you want it to be next. They aren't playing the guitar and singing the song, but the process that causes it to work right is very similar. My brother and I have talked about this because it's an interesting point, frankly, because you in your mind you see what you desire to manifest. You feel it. You have to feel it before it can become real. When you hit a golf ball, it doesn't go where you want it to go unless you know how to feel it. The object is to have your whole body feel the whole shot. And that's generated from your mind. The muscles in your right leg are not telling you how to move. Your mind is telling you how to move. So you have to understand the motion. It's not complicated, but the mental image, I can tell you what I do. I don't know whether you got an audience down there in the Carolinas that plays golf, probably.
Yes, of course.
A simple description of what I'm doing is this. I put the ball in front of me at the destination point that I want it to arrive at, exactly at the destination point, not just the middle of the fairway, the exact place in the middle of the fairway, the exact place on the green, which may be the cup where the flagstick is. And mentally, I put the ball there. I build the shot mentally from the destination point back to where I'm standing. So mentally, I put the ball at the target when it has to, and then I look up in the air until I sense the place it would have to get to fall in the target. In other words, the apex of the flight of the ball.
Wow.
Recognition of the apex shows me the flight of the whole shot. I feel it. When I recognize the apex, I feel it in my solar plexus, actually. And my eyes come back to where I'm standing, and the motion that delivers that flight comes to mind instantly. And then you just let it happen. Most people stand there and they fidget around. As my old friend Mo Norman, who I wrote this book about, said to me one day, and he was a master at this. He would walk up to the ball on the golf course or practicing. He'd just look at it and hit it. Might have taken 3 or 4 seconds and it went where it's supposed to. And he made a comment one day on, he doesn't talk much. He was not articulate, but he was right on the point when he did say something. And he said, the average golfer has 2 things in mind, hope and fear. And that's true. Hope about where they want it to go, the ball, where they want the ball to go, and fear of where it might wind up, in that swamp over there with the alligators and rattlesnakes or whatever. But he was right. He also said something else, which is applicable to creative artists, to musicians, athletes, songwriters, painters. You have to have a quiet mind. Figure out how to create a quiet mind. That's where it, in my view, where it gets into the discussion about that people interested in metaphysics. Where that term came from, I have no idea, but that's it. The mind is a big place, and
it came from Greek philosophers. Aristotle, I believe, started, and then the people were reading their books, what he was left behind, which was we weren't supposed to be seeing. Then the way they translated, they didn't know what word to use, and they just put the word meta in there. Believe it or not. But there are several definitions of metaphysics, and one of them is kind of how you see the world, how's the energy, and all of it. But you made a couple of great points. I think Mo saying hope and fear that the golfer has, but if you think about a lot of people can relate to that. They have hope for a better life, but yet they have fears to go and conquer it, right?
That's true. I think if you, to take the concept of putting a golf ball at the exact destination you wish to have it arrive at, and looking up in the air and finding out the place in the sky where it has to get to fall on the destination point. The fact is, the target isn't the destination point. The target is the apex.
Wow.
It has to get there in order to wind up where you want it to be. So if you're looking at something in your life, whatever it is that you want to have manifest, the energy of intent is what you gather mentally. And you know why you're gathering the intent is to create the picture, the image of the manifestation. And the more energy you pull in there and let it sit there, the clearer the manifestation gets. That's what I noticed myself. And it just builds in energy. And the process helps you create the manifestation that you desire. That could be, for you, drawing a bigger audience for your show. What is it that causes people to become interested in what you're doing? The same thing I'm doing with this book. There's a classic. I'm talking to you because the publicist that handles this and contacted you, that is what she's doing, is bringing this book and what we're talking about in the book to the attention of people gradually. It takes time, and it takes this kind of a discussion ongoing, and then eventually it penetrates the target marketplace. That's what happens.
It's like we're bringing the energy, we're making it more live, right? Like we're building up the energy, kind of thing. Wouldn't you? Is that how you see it?
Yes. Yeah. But you have to know, where do you go to get the energy?
Oh, good question. That's what is it? $1 million question. Where do you get the energy?
The question, it doesn't even cost $1 million. It's a question that has, if you can figure it out, where's the energy come from that allows you to think?
From the universe.
The feeling in your body, that's energy too.
Oh yeah.
It fluctuates, and but it definitely comes from somewhere. That's obvious. And the somewhere is the power that created the universe in the first place. That's, the concept of God is involved in that conversation. There's other ways to describe it. And there have been attempts made to describe it ever since people started talking about it. So right now, when you look around the planet Earth right now at the things that are going on, that are being reported on the news channels about what's going on in the Ukraine, the Middle East, this situation that has now surfaced in northern Maine, where all these people were killed in a bowling alley. And when you look at that kind of activity and a lot of other things that are undesirable, did somebody want to have that manifest? Is this a desired manifestation? That's an interesting point. Obviously, Vladimir Putin wanted to go into the Ukraine or he wouldn't be there. But did he wake up in the middle of the night and say, it's time to invade the Ukraine? I'm going to rebuild the Soviet Union? I don't know what he thought, but I can see what's going on as a spectator.
You can't always determine what people think, but like you pointed out, you can see the reaction, right? So that's kind of what we left with, to see what's the action, but what exactly they were thinking in that moment, it's hard to say. So most definitely. So let's talk about your book, Mind Golf. Where did you get that title? And I'm very curious. It's very interesting.
Because the title Mind Golf, because it's mental energy that drives the action.
Wow.
You create the image of the shot to be. That's the first thing you do. And then when you know how to let the energy that is that image flow into the situation, then the energy is delivered into the image. I noticed this 40 years ago. When I set it up, when I got good at doing that,
Mm-hmm.
the color of the air changed in the flight line. It was like it got hot,
Wow.
like it glowed. And the ball would fly through in that energy. And I always had the impression after a while that the actual process eased the flight of the ball. Because in a wind of one kind or another, I was used to the wind having a certain effect on shots. But when I started doing that, I noticed right away that the wind had less effect.
Wow.
Same wind had less effect. And when I thought about that for a while, I thought, all right, if that's the case, and it was, the mental construct altered the physics of the situation because the ball flew more easily to where he wanted it to go.
That's amazing. That's incredible, isn't it? So you have to create strong enough vision, and then from there you feel it, and that energy kind of guides the action, basically.
Well, you can the energy that you use in order to create the image of the shot to be, the more you do it, the more familiar you get with it. You hold that. It's like desire without desire expressed, so that when the face of the club touches the ball, the energy is released into it, into the flight line, into the equation of the image of the shot to be that you've created. So in a sense, you save that energy, and part of the construct of the way you move has its preconceived that energy will be released into the situation as the face of the club picks the ball up, holds it momentarily, and releases it. It isn't a hit, it's a slinging action. You have to think of it that way because the face of the club picks the ball up and holds it momentarily. In that sense, it's a slinging action. When you think of it that way, the overall motion of the swing, when you do this all the time, like real serious competitive players, they have their own concepts. Now, some of them hearing this, frankly, I think would try what I'm talking about, unless they've already tried it and understand it. We'll see. But that's in that book. I called it Mind Golf because basically it's mentally driven. The physical motion is actually pretty simple. It's centrifugal force. It's a revolving action constituted of wind up and release.
Wow.
And you're revolving around a center line. Because the human body's flexible, the center line can be bent. The fulcrum of the center line can be advanced towards the target. The top of the center line stays in its original position and you're planted on your feet. Basically, the line of balance that I use is up through my left heel. So as long as you maintain the bottom of the line and the top of the line and revolve and don't force it, the face of the club will come around to a square position and deliver the ball into the flight line that you've chosen. That's a lot more simple than a lot of the written descriptions of what you have to do to hit a golf ball that I've read. I know. I noticed that, yeah.
Your book is not an ordinary golf book, that's for sure. It goes above and beyond the real technique. I'm not a golfer, but now the more I listen to you, the more I wanted to try it now. And once with the book and what we talk about now, it should be a lot easier for me once I actually want to do it, because you got me all excited about it now.
Well, a fellow who's a jewelry designer, Jimmy Merck, his name is. I talked to him on the phone one day, and he plays golf. He shoots scores in the 90, 91, 92, 90, 18, 20 over par. So I said to him, try this. When you're on the golf course, put the ball in front of you precisely where you want it to be next. Look up in the air, and you'll sense the place where it has to get to fall on the target, and then hit it. Don't think about it, just do it.
Wow.
What he did, a few days later, I was in touch with him, and he mentioned it. And I said, what happened? He said, well, he went out and he made 4 birdies and shot 80. He almost broke 80 and shot 79. But a 10, 12, 13, 14 stroke improvement in one round of golf is a lot. I was surprised when he told me that.
Amazing.
That's what he did. But that's all he was doing. Now he's trying to figure out why it works that way, and he hasn't been able to repeat it. He's better, but I said, don't think about it. Just do what I suggested. The rest of it has to do, the energy part of it is natural. That's what happened with that guy the first time he tried that. He didn't think about what it made it work that way. He just did it. Now, if you start thinking of what happens when you do that, obviously, you looked at where you want the ball to be, looked up in the air, you sensed the place it had to get to fall in the target, and you could feel it, and you hit it, and it went more or less in the right direction. So it's mind-driven. So the book's called Mind Golf. And the rest of it, The Troubled Genius of Mo Norman, is the rest of the title is picked for a variety of reasons. He was a very introverted individual who actually was a natural ham, and he did he liked to hit golf balls in a clinic situation where there'd be 200 or 300 people watching him or whatever it was, and he did that for about 20 years with a fellow from Florida, Craig Shankland, who's well known in the game, and Mo liked that because he could exhibit what he was doing and talk about it a little bit and show people what he could do. But he always said, it's so simple. So you've got 100 millions or 70 some odd million people playing golf. I'll bet you there aren't 100 of them think it's simple. There might be a few, but there isn't 70 million. Mo said, it's simple. It's so simple. And when he'd
simple if you know what you're doing, right?
right. Well, he'd go out there to some of the professional tour tournaments, and these guys, the pro tour players, including Tiger Woods, Nick Faldo, Paul Isinger, Peter Jacobson, people who in those days were extreme. Well, Tiger's still really well known, and so is Nick Faldo from broadcasting.
Right.
But they'd stand there and watch Mo, and they couldn't figure out how he did it either. They didn't know what to ask him, and he didn't know what to tell them. But I hit hundreds of thousands of golf balls with Mo. I knew him for 40 years. We were friends. We had a couple of private practice area places in Florida in the winter for years. So we'd meet every morning. We'd hit 200 or 300 golf balls each. And then we go to another golf course and hit putts and chip shots. And in the afternoon, we play 9 holes and play 3 or 4 balls a hole. This went on for a long time. Not a few months, a few years. So once in a while, people off the tour who knew where we were would find us. They would watch what's going on, and then away they'd go.
They wanted to see the two geniuses playing golf. Come on
They
now.
They wanted to find the keys to the locks. That's what they were looking for.
Now they have the keys to the lock with your book, Mind Golf.
They'll get something out of it. If they read that book, there's stuff in there where is this book anyhow? There's stuff in it that will be useful to them. And this picture, I'll just hold this thing up here.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. I was gonna ask you to talk about the picture. There's a deeper meaning to the picture. Yeah.
See that? Well, there's
Yes.
a little star at the top of the image. That's where the apex is. The rest of it denotes the mental connection to the apex, the line from it down to where you want the ball to wind up, and the energy of the situation. Anyhow, it's that's what that picture is. I suggested it to the artist. I described to her what I just told you.
Okay.
And that's what she drew. So, I mean, there were different versions of it, but that's the final one. That's why it's on the cover of the book. But that picture tells a lot when you figure out what it means. If you don't know what it means, it looks interesting. What are these people talking about? He's got a golf club and there's stars and lines of light and so on. Yeah, okay. All right.
It's like you see it before you hit it, and then you just don't think about it. You just feel it and do it. That's what it feels like to me.
Well, now I have that was in the 1982, 83. I could do that. This is 40 years later, and my understanding about how to draw and manipulate and direct energy is way more refined than it was then. So I am headed, this is now winter here, almost. I'm in southern Ontario in Canada. And I'm
Is it cold there yet?
not today, it isn't. It's in Fahrenheit degrees, it's probably in the low 60s. Yesterday it was in the high 60s. However, I'm going to go somewhere where it's warm. That could be the Caribbean, Central America. It's just warm in Australia in the wintertime in the right part of the country. And I'll go somewhere where I can hit lots of golf balls. And I'll see what happens. I'll be intrigued myself because I have an idea that I can extend the image. I can cause the ball to go farther and control precisely where it winds up. 40 years ago, when I figured out how to set up the image, I noticed that day to day, the ball seemed to be going farther. It was very, very accurate. So I started extending the image or the destination point by 3 to 5 feet a day. A month later, I was averaging about 15 yards farther and quite often farther than that. And I wasn't hitting the ball any harder. I was just doing the same thing, but the mental image changed. So now what I'm going to do is see if I can attain that kind of precision again, then what I'm interested in is I'll keep extending that image. But from what I saw 40 years ago, I wonder, where is the end of that process? How far can you actually hit a golf ball doing that? I have no idea, but it's farther than I can hit it right now. I know that. So,
well, continuously learning, right, and experimenting. I think that's part of the journey. It's amazing.
Even if that isn't what you're trying to do, that's what's actually happening. I mean, trying to hit the golf ball and control where it winds up leads to realizing you can manipulate the distance it goes mentally. That's very interesting. How far can you take that idea? And then you watch what happens and you think, is there a limit to this? I mean, can you hit the thing 1,000 yards or what? I don't know. But whatever it is, it's intriguing. And it all goes back to access and control of the flow of energy involved, which is mentally conceived of and directed. And that can be applied to anything. You don't have to be a golfer, a musician trying to play the guitar or anything else to do any of this stuff. Pick whatever it is you do.
How do you relate it to the business, the energy? You create a mental image of where you want your business to be?
Well, you look at it, there are a lot of analogies. Architects, for instance, create a vision of a building. Then somebody comes along and says, I want that building. And a construction company comes along and builds it. Now, it doesn't happen in 4 or 5 seconds, but the process is similar. It's slow, but first there's the image, the desired image of what you want to manifest, and then there's what it takes to cause the manifestation to become manifest. So this is different. The golf ball's here. I want it to be there now, not in 3 or 4 months now. And if you're firing arrows through the air to target, it's the same thing. Basketball, any sport where there's a human being and a projectile launched by a human being. It could be a hockey puck. It doesn't matter, a baseball, whatever. The guy with the baseball bat is looking at the ball coming towards him, where in his mind it's going over the fence as a home run. The really good home run hitters had a different way of hitting the ball than people who weren't good at that. Maybe they could describe it, maybe they couldn't. And even if they understood it, they probably kept it to themselves because it's a competitive advantage.
Would you say playing golf is like almost playing musical instrument? It's the creation? All of it is creation?
Well, it certainly is a big part of it. You create the image of the shot to be and keep doing that. Something useful happens. And creating songs. I don't see any, the process is very, very similar. The rate of speed it happens at varies. Although with writing songs, depending on who's doing it, sometimes you come up with something musically and play it. I wrote a song recently, or sometime in the last year or so, and I played almost the whole thing at once.
Wow.
I just had the feel for it in my mind, and I knew what I wanted to say. And fortunately, I could remember the lyric afterwards because it wasn't recorded or anything. But I noticed that flow reminded me of what I could do with golf clubs, for instance. And watch people who paint, artists who paint watercolors and things. They have a feel of the image that they want to create, and that's what they're trying to do. And musicians do the same thing, and others do it too. I mean, you can look at what you're doing. As I said earlier, you can have a vision of what you want your show to become. There's one thing, if you don't have a vision of what you want it to become, is it likely to get there? Probably not. But if you do have a vision of it, you've got that. And at least what's going on, you'll be able to measure it against where you want it to get, your show to get to. It's like the marketing of the book. Fine. By comparison, the writing of the book is easy for me. The marketing of it is another world. And it all boils down to marketing as far as the commercial entities are concerned. When I go south this winter, I'll write another book. It'll be a follow-up to this book of mine.
I was gonna ask, what's next for you? Is another book? Wow. Okay. Good. Awesome.
The other book will be called Cosmic Golf, The Zone, and the Golden Stroke.
Wow.
The guys out in the tour, the professional tours, the term the zone to them is the mental state they get into once in a while where everything goes the way they want it to. The ball goes where it's supposed to go. And that frame of mind comes to them from wherever, and then it departs. And they wonder where it went, or where do I go to get that back? But that's it, the zone. That's the zone to them. So I do like a cosmic golf will be energy. How do you
Yeah, I can relate to that because I grew up in the musical family. Like my grandmother was almost like you. Like she didn't know, she never had a formal education, but she had can play anything by heart. She can sing, she can play, and she was incredible. However, my mother actually had formal education. She was talented musician. She was an excellent piano teacher, and she and I perform on stage together. And I can certainly relate to the term of getting in the zone. Before I get on the stage, I had to get into the zone so I can have to see kind of the end of the performance, so to speak, the success of it before I even got to the stage. So I can certainly relate to the zone.
That's it. You know where you want it to go. The destination point is you want the audience to be responsive and pleased with what's sitting there. And then what triggers the action is whatever triggers it, and the story tells itself. The performance tells itself, and it gets to the destination point. You want to please this crowd out there, and that's that it's the same thing that a lot of musicians, people like my brother, he goes out there and plays. And a few years ago, where were we? Palm Desert in California, there was this big gathering at Coachella, and there were like 80,000-90,000 people. So
wow.
That's a lot of people.
Yes.
And but the level of performance, you just go out there and deliver the thing. When I'm writing, for instance, I know where I want it to go. All it takes to get it launched is something that comes into my mind that triggers the beginning of it, and then the story tells itself. That way, the written expression has a flow to it that it would never otherwise have.
So when you get in that zone, in that moment, you allow the energy to flow to help you with that creation. It's kind of you working with the energy. You help, the energy helps you. You help the energy, and at the end, you co-creating with the energy.
Well, I do that. I do things that set it up for myself personally. I can. Uh, have you ever heard the expression the etheric body? Etheric.
I
E-T-H.
Yeah, I have. Yes, I
Well,
think it's interesting. Uh-huh.
it is. My version of the etheric body, and it's, I think this is the classical description of it, is that the etheric body is the body that moves with ease. So what I do, and I can do it quickly now because I've been doing it for a long time, I just see another being within my skin, within my body, that occupies the same feet, legs, torso, neck, head, brain structure, consciousness. It is a duplicate of my physical presence. And that is a feeling. I feel it. So when my physical body breathes out, I let this other body breathe in. When it breathes out, my physical body breathes in. So it is a constant. I become familiar with it. And in that state of mind, and I can do it fairly rapidly now, once you do something like that, you start seeing other possibilities. I mean, here we live in this solar system. The sun's there. Obviously, something created it. There's energy flowing into that created the sun, and the sun's energy causes the planet Earth to live, to be here. Subtract the sun from it, I think it's over. But obviously, what I do is in that when I tune with the etheric body, mentally I reach down to the center of the Earth
Hmm.
because I know that it's got to be connected to the sun through some a relationship of energy. And then there's what created the sun. Now, that can go on for a long time mentally. However, when I do that, I feel something else. And I notice when I do it that the colors around me get brighter and I feel lighter on my feet. And what I'm doing physically, hitting golf balls, is where I first noticed this, is it's eased. It's just there's more flow in what's going on.
Wow.
Where you go with that is up to the individual. You can take that idea a long way. So those
How
kind of
did
things,
how did you get into that?
just a natural course of events. I read stuff. I read all of Carlos Castaneda's books in
Oh,
the
okay.
late 60s, early 70s. There's a lot of interesting information about what we're talking about is in there.
Oh, you've been doing that for a long time now? Etheric body, what you're talking about, it's been a long time, or you just started in the last 10 years?
No, I knew about the etheric body in the 1970s.
Hmm.
So I've been doing, but I didn't know what it meant. I just did what I explained to you. I recognized another being within my skin so that when I breathed out, it breathed in and so on and so forth. And I watched what happened. I wasn't focused on it all day long or anything, but I was aware that there was something going on with that idea. And then it gradually became more and more evident what I could do with it, especially playing golf. I thought when it dawned on me one day, probably I've forgotten where I was, in Florida, I think. I noticed that I felt that I moved easier. And the etheric body, I
Wow.
aware,
That's amazing. Wow.
known by Eastern philosophies or religions, the etheric body was designated as the body that moves with ease.
Hmm.
From what I could see, that was accurate. I noticed there was an ease to what I was doing. And I noticed it playing the guitar too now. So, and I'm not a good guitar player, but what I do is natural. And, it sounds, I like the sound of it. I like what I'm doing with it. And I can do more things than that. But the other thing I do often is writing. So,
Is that like you feel like you and almost get yourself in a different state of mind kind of thing? How do you get there? What like initially, of course, now you said you've been doing it for a long time, it becomes more natural to you, like you don't even think about it. How did you, the first couple of times, how did you start getting into that stuff?
I started by I was interested in the idea of when it was suggested to me that I create another being that occupies the same, the invisible aspect of my physical presence that occupies the same feet, legs, torso, neck, head, brain structure, consciousness as my physical presence. Create a perception of another being within your body. Say that's the being of energy. You feel it. So once you feel it and you recognize it and you keep doing that, you can get into that frame of mind, tuned to that body, that feeling body. And if you're doing something physical, like I was doing, I noticed that it eased it. And the etheric body is known as the body that moves with ease. Once I started doing that, I realized that it was an accurate description of what the etheric body can do. Well, once you figure out what makes that work, whatever energy that you've managed to funnel into that concept, you can probably increase it the same way you created initially. So that's what I did. And I was trying to figure out where energy came from. And I remember saying to Mo Norman one day, I said, you know something, we live in a solar system. There's obviously energy here. We use energy. So the energy that connects the earth and the sun is keeping us alive. So if you connect mentally with the center of the earth or the whole planet, it's got to be connected a little more directly in your conscious awareness with the actual power that is the line of power between the sun and the earth. I was guessing sort of, but I thought that may sound to me like it makes sense. We'll try it. What difference does it make? But it actually made a difference.
Mm.
And that was 40 years ago I was trying to do that.
Wow. 40 years.
Yeah, but it's not. So it doesn't matter how long ago it was. Once you figure it out, you figure it out in 40 minutes.
Now you're an expert.
I don't know. If you've never done what I just suggested was happening, you could. There's nothing complicated about it.
Let's see, now you're getting me excited about playing golf, and now you're getting me to get excited, even more excited about metaphysics. I was for the last at least 3 to 5 years, the idea of metaphysics and the quantum leap and quantum physics and mechanics, I have a very curious mind, and I was always curious about how things work and what's the truth and all the philosophical ideas. I always want to learn things and kind of explore and experiment. And that's the beauty of life, is the adventure, to see new things, to experiment new things, to then share your experiences with other people, right? So that was one of those things that I really wanted to do. And the conversation with you is amazing to me, because you have a depth of different different skills and different knowledge, and you're not just musician, which you don't find. It's interesting to me. You don't feel like you are a great musician. I'm sure you are. A professional golfer, and now that book that will make a huge difference for a lot of people. And even I never was that much interested about golf. Now I'm excited about it, to see how that can help, So I wanted to hear more about Mo. My understanding, he was very disciplined. Golf was his life, and he just was a genius. But was he a genius, or was he disciplined, or is it both?
Well, the title of the book is The Troubled Genius of Mo Norman, Mind Golf and the Troubled Genius of Mo Norman. He didn't fit into the social order of things very well. And but he was dedicated to what he did. He looked at the world, and I mentioned it in this book. He looked at the world, its wars, its conflicts, the uproar in business, and so on and so forth. And he didn't want to be involved in it. But he liked playing golf and hitting golf balls on the practice range. So he went to the golf course and he stayed there because he was comfortable there. was the only place he was really comfortable. And if anybody tried to intrude on his quiet mind state, he would depart, and he would not go back to wherever something contrary transpired. He had his own comfort zone that he created, and he stayed in it. I always knew what it was. I mean, after I got to know him, but I knew him from the time I was probably 19, 20, 21 years old until he passed on in 21 or 20, 2001 or 2, somewhere in there. Yeah, 2003, maybe it was. At any rate, I knew him for 40 years. So we had a good rapport. And I played golf. We hit a lot of golf balls together and talked about what made it work right. Apart from the holding the club the right way, the rest of it is mentally driven. The physical motion is a result of what you perceive, what your concept is. So that was it. The more refined the concept got, or the mental concept got, the easier it was to hit the golf ball and have it go in the right direction. So
it was almost a combination of skills and mental mind game. So once you combine those two, that's it. That's the key.
It's mentally driven. It is. The mind instigates all sorts of things, including this. So, it's there are a lot of descriptions on how to strike a golf ball written in books and magazines and so on and so forth.
Right.
But you have to have the right concept in order to know how to make your body move in a way that's compatible with the objective you have, which is to get the ball to go where you want it to go, the way you want it to get there. So that's what we did. That's what we talked about. And he could do what I eventually learned how to do. Do it, but he didn't really know how to explain it.
And that's where you came with your skills.
Well, partly. I mean, I asked him once I did ask him a question. I said, Mo, what's in your mind right before you hit the ball?
Okay.
What do you do mentally? And he said, you have to make the chosen line of aim. Now, that was his description of what I call the image of the shot to be. So when he said that, I thought about it, and I thought, you have to make it. That means you have to create it somehow. This didn't all happen in a few minutes or anything, but he said that to me. And gradually it came to, I came to understand what that make the chosen line of aim. That's interesting. You know where you want the ball to get to. How do you get it there? Make the chosen line of aim. So what has to happen to get it to where you want it to be? It's got to go up in the air to a place where it begins its descent and winds up where you want it to be. That took a while to, it's obvious, except that until you realize that it's obvious and simple, it's mysterious. So that's why all those golfers are out there. They don't know that, but if they did, like that fellow Jimmy Murk that I mentioned, that's what happened. He clicked into it. And now he's clicked into it, he's trying to figure out, why does that actually work that way? And that is that ultimately leads in the right direction too. But it has to do with mental, the mind's focused on something, and keep it simple. The brain is a big place. It'll show you all sorts of things if you let it.
Yeah. Bob, you play a lot of golf. So what was the most memorable moment in your career as a professional golfer? Or maybe it was more than one.
Well, I think the most memorable moment was probably when Mo and I had a private practice area in a little place in Florida, Oak Hill. And that's where I got very good, was in that thing. And one day he looked at me and he said, Bob, you're the closest in the game to Ben Hogan. Now,
wow.
Ben Hogan was revered as the finest striker of golf ball in the game. He and Mo Norman are essentially equal. And I knew that, and Mo knew that, and Ben Hogan knew it also. And but that's what he said to me. I knew I was really good, but I didn't think of it that way until he mentioned it to me one day. He said, "You're the closest in the game to Hogan." I was so accurate that it was amazing. And I understand why. That's when it got to that point. Now, I'll be interested to see what happens. I'll see if I can recreate that because I understand it. And so I'm just going to go and see what happens. I know that it works because I did it before. Now, when I mean, my vision's slightly blurred, but it's getting better. But when I go to the golf course here where I am, I go and hit a few balls. They go in the right direction. I might not hit it absolutely perfectly flush, pure all the time, and I don't, but it goes in the right direction. The physical motion accomplishes that. And the last time I hit any balls, frankly, I didn't hit even very many, but I might have hit 10 shots with my driver. And the last 3 or 4 of them, I heard that sound, which is absolute, direct, pure contact. And it was simply because of what I had in mind. And it's, that isn't going to change. So I'm going somewhere where it's warm and I can go out there for a few months and I'll just keep, and then I'll write this other book and we'll see what happens. Then I'll talk to you in another few months about my next book.
Next book, yes, I know. Bob, what is one thing that people will be surprised to hear about you? Something that nobody knows.
I don't know. If they listen to everything that I've been saying to you and read this book, they'll probably think there's not many people who think the way this person does.
Yes. So there's Bob Young for your confidence. He has so much depth to everything. It's simple, yet it's complicated. What's that called? Duality? Positive, negative, simple, yet complicated. As you mentioned earlier, it's not that difficult. Well, but it's complicated, right?
Well, it isn't. It isn't. You know what's complicated is discussing how it works. The fact is, it works. But if you sit there and try to describe what makes it work, now you can be there for quite a while.
Oh, that's gold right there. Wow. I think before I heard you.
Go ahead.
I think before you were mentioning, like, if you bring the resistance or if you feel like you have to work hard, then it's not a flow. You need to kind of allow the energy flows, right? Can you kind of talk about that?
Well, with relation to golf, yeah, or anything else, once you have a clear desire to manifest something, when I go out to practice playing golf, I'll stretch, make sure that my body is flexible and loose, and then I'll just when I get to hitting golf balls with a driver, they're sitting on a tee. I'll just look at where I want it to go, walk up to the ball, land in front of the shot, and hit it. And gradually, it will be refined because it has the same objective every time. Mm. And that's the way to do it. Your balance, actually, the desired shot to be balances you.
Wow.
You got to feel that shot so you're balanced for it specifically. And the way to do that is to look at get an absolute clear idea of the image of the shot to be, then walk up, land in front of the ball and hit it. And you might not be perfectly organized to hit it the way you want to, but you will get perfectly organized by doing it that way. That was something I figured out a long time ago, and I'll use it again because it works. I could see that. You stand over the golf ball and fidget around. And people do it all the time. They don't even know what they're looking for. Comfort is what they're trying to find. They don't find it. Now they don't know where the ball's going to go. And they don't. And it goes everywhere you could possibly think of. And however, to get it to go where you want it to go, what I'll do, I'll tee it up. I'll pick the target out. I'll know what I want the flight to look up, and I'll walk up there with that in mind and hit it. And the more often I do it, the more precise my winding up in the right position to deliver the motion that creates the flight of the shot that I have in mind. I did it a long time ago. Now I can see that I can feed more energy into all of this. So I'm intrigued by it.
It is intriguing.
And I'll write about it. That's what I'm going to do when I write this next book. I'm going to have somebody there to shoot some of it with an iPad or whatever contraption is needed. And I'll talk about what I'm doing when I feel like it. Then I'll have an audio version of it. And I'll be writing the book at the same time. So at the end of the process, I'll have the book and I'll have some audio visual record of what I'm doing and what I'm thinking as it's happening so that it's spontaneous. That's my idea.
I think that's an excellent idea. Yeah, that's be awesome. But how long it took you to write the Mind Golf book? All in all.
I kept notes of it from way back there, probably in the 1960s. And I just tried to write down things every once in a while. I just kept it in a pile of paper. Eventually it got bigger. And I thought eventually I might actually write a book out of all this stuff, but I wanted a record of what it was because I knew that some of it was unique to the game because it came out of my association with Mo Norman. I just kept the notes because I wanted to, and then I realized I could create a book out of it, so I did. Now I'm going to do more. I have other books that I want to write that have nothing to do with golf.
Wow, what would that be? What subject is it? Metaphysics?
Well, it may have something to do with that also. There's I have a lot of material in that area that I think people would find interesting. But the next thing I'm going to do is write another book this winter, and then after that, I have other thoughts in mind, and whatever seems to be the right thing to do next, I'll figure it out next spring.
Awesome.
Doing that, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So this is not your ordinary book. People who listen to it, Bob was taking notes from what, 1960s, you said, right? So there's a lot of gold in there.
It's an accumulation over a long period of time, and then it became this book. That's really all that happened. I looked at it and I started putting it together, and I wrote what I wrote. When I read it now, and I haven't read it for months, I probably think of things that I wish I'd put in there that I didn't think of. But everybody who writes looks at what they wrote and wants to change it here and there after the fact that it's already published. But that, I'm not going to do that either. I'm going to write another book, just add to whatever all this is. I think the metaphysical part of it is interesting. Metaphysical is an interesting term if anybody understands what it means. But the relationship between the mind and energy and what you're trying to accomplish and how they fit together is something that everybody is probably interested in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bob, is there anything else you want to add that we didn't talk about?
Not that I can think of right now.
Okay. We'll talk about your next book when that be done. I'm already excited about it. But for people who listen, I would like to add, so kind of summarize, I think from what we learned from Bob just now, to have a vision, right? To have a mind, have your mind at peace, have a vision, and have the intent for the vision.
Yes. Yeah. That's the energy of intent. To bring about the manifestation of what you desire to manifest, whatever it is.
And I think when you were talking about connecting to the energy, that's very interesting concept to me. There's different ways of people talk about that, and people understand it very differently what that means.
They probably do understand it if they think about it. I mean, they understand it differently if they think about it at all. Where does it come from? I don't know how many people actually pursue that. Maybe there are more and more people these days pursuing it. I don't know. But something everybody's saying, how do I cause this to happen that I want to have happen? Well, that's all I was trying to do, and I did it the way I did it. So I'm still doing it.
To me, there's a lot of experimentation, curiosity, and that excitement. When I combine all of that and intend with the more of a clear vision, if you combine all of that and continue experiment, then you will see things are starting changing. And from what you were saying earlier, it depends on what you're doing. If you're hitting the ball, you will most likely see the result almost instantaneous. But if you're creating a business, you may not be able to see results immediately, but then you continue, take one step at a time, and that's where you can start your vision start to evolve and unfold before your eyes. That's where the excitement brings even more energy. At least that's what it looks to me.
That's what I think too. I agree with you.
I think we're living in an exciting world, and hearing people like you and kind of getting our mind thinking about certain things and wanted to see better for ourselves and the rest of the people around us. It's an exciting time to live.
It certainly is exciting. There's nothing dull about what's going on.
And look at technology. I'm here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and you are how many miles away? And we're having such an amazing conversation. Yeah, it's like if you look at the things that have been how we evolve and technology and everything, I don't know. Some people are just so upset about every little thing, but if you look at the big picture and look to see and be amazed at what you have and grateful and continue experiment and learn more and see what we can do and create and how far we came already as a humanity. I think it's exciting and amazing.
It is. It is. So I keep doing it. That's what I'm doing.
And look at Bob Young, what an inspiration for everybody. At his young age of what, 81 you said? You're still playing golf, you're still experimenting, writing books. What an inspiration.
Well, here I am.
I couldn't be more grateful and thankful for having this conversation. I'm truly inspired, and I would like to encourage everybody to go out there, experiment, learn, just keep going, create, get to the whatever that next level is for you. Experiment. The life is about having fun, enjoying, experimenting, and inspire each other. That I'm so grateful for you being here on the show, and we had that conversation. And just tell people one more time how to find you and your book and how to keep up with you.
Well, they can look at my website, bobyounggolf.com. That's easy to remember, I hope. bobyounggolf.com. You can see it there. There's an audio book. I read the book. My brother Neil Young read his foreword, and my friend Barry Morrow read his foreword. And Barry, since we haven't mentioned him, I'll mention him this.
Please.
Now, Barry wrote the screenplay for the international hit film Rain Man and won an Oscar for it. And he's a friend. So I think I thank you for inviting me to be on your show. And your audience, the golfing part of it, might avail themselves here in the upcoming Christmas season. Go to my website and if they're interested, get the book or the audio book or both of them, and take into account also their friends who are golfing friends, and they'll probably get something out of this book that's useful. I certainly hope so. But
Yeah, I hope so too. Don't forget, Bob. Keep up with Bob Young. Get the book, the Mind Golf book, will change your golf game. But if you never played, even better, because you're gonna have it start from the first right step. Right, is the mind right here. And one of the biggest reasons that I had started the podcasting, so I can bring people like Bob that can inspire you. and encourage your uniqueness, whether discovering or rediscovering. We want to inspire you and encourage your uniqueness. And I really appreciate your time, Bob. You are truly inspiration, and the depths of your knowledge and your curiosity is amazing. I really love talking to you.
I enjoyed speaking with you also. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye for now. We'll see you soon.
Okay.
As we wrap up today's episode, we encourage you to carry the wisdom of mind golf into your daily endeavors. Remember, success is not just about the perfect swing, but also about navigating challenges with resilience and focus. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share your thoughts below, and keep the conversation alive. Until next time, keep the energy high, pursue your purpose, and make your mark. See you!